podium colors. Chase Sexton wins San Francisco.
Yeah, welcome back. It's SMX Insider. We are the Jasons, Wygant, and Thomas. After a very muddy round 2 of Monster Energy AMA Supercross and the SuperMotocross World Championship in San Francisco. Some people hate mud races. Some people love them. I happen to love that it was round 2 because I still feel like we don't know anything about how this Supercross Championship is going to shape up, because mud races, to me, don't really prove anything about how the racing will go on a dry track.
Yeah, we went into A1 with far more questions than answers. I think we got a little bit of insight to some of them, and we're looking to kind of firm up those conclusions in San Francisco. But yes, to your point, mud races, to me, tell us nothing. They're their own unique animal. And hopefully, going into San Diego, maybe we'll get a little bit more backup to what we saw in A1.
Now, one encouraging thing in the post-race press conference, so Chase Sexton wins, Eli Tomac finishes second. They both thought they would have been much better than round 1, even if the track had been dry. Now, maybe they'll get to prove it as soon as San Diego this weekend, but that to me was encouraging. They feel like they're at least making progress, even outside the mud.
Yeah, and for Eli Tomac to be 9th, of course, you're hoping to be a little bit better in San Francisco, but we don't know, and that's the big thing. If you're trying to draw conclusions from San Francisco, I think that's a fool's errand. But yeah, it adds a little bit more suspense. It's dragging out the inevitable. We will get answers to these questions, just not quite yet.
Now, Sexton did say he thought he would be a lot better if the track was dry. But like you said, we'll have to wait on that. We'll analyze it more later in the show. I think track conditions are probably top of everyone's mind right now. So our big interview this week is going to be with Dirt Wurx' own Alex Gillespie, who's down in San Diego, building round 3. So now joined by Alex Gillespie of Dirt Wurx. Phenomenal job. We always take it for granted. The race is run, rain or shine. It worked. Yes, it was a mud race, but I think we forget how hard it is to even just get the race in at all and make it as good as it even could be. We shouldn't take that for granted, but we do. So tip of the hat to you guys. But I hate to do this. JT and I do another podcast with our buddy Steve Mathis, and I want to disprove him. So help me here. He says, why not just build a 1982 nothing but easy doubles Supercross track when you know rain is coming? Why not just do that?
Well, we built that whole track on Monday, which was still like 5 days away from the race. And the weather was kind of going 2 different directions. It looked like we were going to get some rain, but how much? I would hate to build like a amateur Supercross track, and then the track ends up being pretty good, and everyone's in the seats just watching a pretty simplified one-line track. So it was somewhat of a gamble, but man, it took a turn for the worse. And as you can see, we got tons and tons of rain, and the ruts were out of control. I mean, in my opinion, no matter what kind of track we had built, it would have been foot peg deep ruts, and they probably would have been singling everything either way.
So, when we're going into these races and we're kind of previewing these things, Weege and I, it seems like we're on a podcast every single day, no different than SMX Insider here. And we hear about these terms like a 1-day build, and the crew got there really early to make sure they could build it and cover it before rain showed up. So walk us through how that process works. Like, who's watching the weather so closely? When do they make that call as far as, okay, we're sending a crew in earlier than normal and we have to get it built by X? Like, just what does that process look like week to week? Because again, we have 17 rounds of planning to go through.
Yeah, so it's really just a collab of Dirt Wurx and Feld. We're always looking at the weather, all of us, and we always have a discussion, whether if it's meetings or group chats. But we saw that there was some weather, so we left Anaheim a day early. So we normally travel on Monday, and our first day of work is Tuesday. Since it was just a drive north, we drove up on Sunday morning and then got to work first thing Monday morning. As far as the logistics, we have to contact the building, let them know, let the security know, make sure that the equipment is, all good to go. However, Monster Jam had left it, so we work with, that tour as well. But yeah, it was a big help that all the dirt was already in the building and all the equipment was already there, and the road base was put down and rolled in nice and tight, which allowed us to work, because that Oakland dirt, as you know, is kind of a softer material to begin with. And that's another reason why San Fran was such a ruddy, muddy track. That dirt doesn't take water that good. I mean, look at MetLife Supercross last year. I mean, it dumped rain, but the base was hard, and they were still jumping everything throughout the whole main event.
And now moving to this weekend, I actually shot this show from the press box of Snapdragon Stadium last year at this time, and the stadium was a lake. And then I don't remember San Diego feeling like a mud race. So that shows the job you guys can do if it doesn't rain on race day. What do you think you have in store so far for this weekend?
Yeah, when I remember you actually shooting that up there, I could see you, and it was a mess from Moss Jam. They had a lot of rain, but what was good was we had sunny weather for the most part last year, all the way up until race day, where we could spread the dirt out thin and let it dry and push it back up. But there was a lot of late nights that week. So far, the dirt's in great condition. The track is 3/4 built. We're still hauling some dirt in today, but yeah, the weather for this weekend shows a little bit of rain. Not too bad. So this dirt gets really hard too. Right now it's like compacted pretty good. So we won't see a track like we had last week, no matter what.
I think the fans want to hear that because of the racing, but I think you guys need that as well. It'd be nice to get a good dry one in, right?
Yeah, exactly. And now I was bummed. You know, you never want to see a race like that. I mean, it's exciting for a little bit, but then it kind of like gets almost old. You know, we want to see a track where there's, you know, options in the rhythm lanes, there's block passing, some guys are better in the whoops than others, and there's some separation, but it was survival mode last week for the riders.
Yeah, and probably for you guys as well. So hopefully a little bit better this time. Thanks for visiting with us, and we'll check in with you again on Saturday. 30-second board, hot topics in the sport. We've joked for years, JT, about how many chances RJ Hampshire and Jordan Smith have had to win races and titles in 250 Supercross. For one of them, this could really be the year. They're the winners of the first two rounds.
Yeah, the transition from them being the young guys coming in, racing. I remember them at Monster Cup racing the amateur class, and now they're the veterans of the class that have been around forever, both seeming to fight tooth and nail for this championship.
Are you worried at all Hampshire ends up falling down in the mud? Are you worried about that? Does that mean anything, or just write that off?
No, I'm usually worried about RJ falling in every scenario, so this was no different. But for both of them, that's been the story of their career. They're usually the fastest rider on the racetrack if they're upright, and I don't see 2024 being any different than that.
Oh, I don't know, man. It's just a mud race. It's a mud race, and as soon as you fall, you get your grips muddy. I write this one off for RJ. I think he'll be okay moving forward. And then Old Dogs Part 2, we're talking about Tomac and Roczen, old rivals going back over a decade now, back up on the podium. Were you worried about either guy coming out of Anaheim 1? I actually wasn't worried about Tomac. Definitely not Roczen. He was down early and still rode well. I wasn't worried. Were you worried? Did you need to see this?
I wasn't worried about Roczen at all. He was fantastic in that heat race, and then the first lap crash, those things happened. Tomac, I'm still a little concerned, only championship-wise. And I think he really caught a break with Jet Lawrence struggling because he needs to keep this points chase in sight. So if there's a little bit of parity, Sexton winning, fourth at the opener, and Tomac can hang around through these races in January until he gets back to form, that is the ideal setup for him. So I think San Francisco was an absolute, I don't want to say gift because he went out and got second place himself, but it was the perfect setup for him.
Yeah, he's basically even with Jet in points after two rounds, coming back from a big injury and an off night at Anaheim 1. You take that. I just feel like we've seen weird Tomac rides in the past. I try not to read into any of them, especially not at round 1. This was a really, really cool story brewing. I think American fans have really come to like the personality they've seen from the MXGP world champion Jorge Prado, but we got to see it in full when he won a heat race at San Francisco. Let's hear from him.
I mean, I'm not a really mud specialist, but it looks like I come to the US and I handle the mud very well. So, you know, super happy. My second ever heat race and already a win. I know conditions are tough, but I know start was important. I didn't get a good jump, but I attacked a lot of corner in the first section. I know I missed that when I was in Anaheim, so I'm like, hey, I can do this too. And I went a bit sketchy in the first two lines, but you know, that was enough to control the race. Making the jumps, it's so tough. And if you want to hit the rhythms, it's like crazy. So, no, I've been enjoying it. It was tough at the end with the lappers. Lappers going left to right, you didn't know where to go. Chase was behind me, so I'm like, hey, let's bring it home. And hey, a win and a hit race here. Supercross, I couldn't expect this. So cool, so cool.
Yeah, that's the thing. I bet fans already knew that Jorge could ride. The credentials do that. But now we're getting to see the personality. He's such a fun guy to talk to. Also, the reaction from the family when he got back to the pits after the heat.
Yeah, if you were wondering if this guy was a true fan of Monster Energy Supercross, I think just the reaction from he and his family, as you mentioned, reinforced that, right? This is a guy who's watched this series from afar for a decade or longer, since he was a little kid. So to be on that stage, up there winning a heat race like that, talking to Will Christian, you could tell what it meant to him. And this is on the heels of becoming an MXGP world champion last year. So I just think it speaks to how he values this series. And I don't have any doubt that he'll be back here in 2025.
Yeah, me neither. Although I do want to say slow the roll. Again, it's a mud race. So I'm not going to say that he whipped everybody in Supercross in only his second try. It was a mud race. It's going to be a while before I think he could win one of these on a dry track, but I wouldn't rule it out somewhere down the road, maybe next year, to your point. Let's go on to Dylan Ferrandis, who I don't think has gotten enough attention for how well he's ridden. He's right there in the points. He just missed the podium, but for Phoenix Honda and a new 450 program for him, this is really good.
Yeah, and you always hear riders talking about, well, I want to be able to pick my suspension and I want to work with the people that I choose to work with. And I think we both collectively roll our eyes sometimes because you hear it all the time. You're like, okay, how bad can it be, or how unhappy can you be? He's kind of proving this out. At least in this specific scenario, things seem to be working through 2 races, and he looks happy. Look at the smile on his face there. That's hard to fake. I was standing 6 inches away from him several times last summer, and I didn't see a lot of smiling from him. So regardless of the results, he just looks like he's in a much better place mentally.
You're the one that made the joke and said, you want to get on a Honda. Have you talked to Chase Sexton about that? I thought that was hilarious. Just faced up with him, and he loves that bike. Now, on the Yamaha side, let's talk about the other Yamaha team, Club MX. Everybody's buddy, Phil Nicoletti, thought he might have a dream podium at 34 years old, might have gotten his first ever Supercross podium, but his teammate Garrett Marchbanks tracks him down. Still incredible for either one of the Muck-Off FXR Club MX Yamaha riders.
Yeah, this last lap battle was incredible, and the audio side for me was so incredible. And if there's ever been a reason to go to Monster Energy Supercross, it was something like that, because it's so hard to pick up on the little nuances if you're sitting on your couch. But Garrett Marchbanks was riding his motorcycle, I don't know, 14,000 RPM on the last lap, clutch held in, just wide open. And it shows how much a podium means in this class. And of course, we're all rooting for Phil. We want him to be up on that podium, but kudos to Garrett Marchbanks for putting it all on the line and sending it on that last lap to get it done.
Okay, Old Dogs Part 3. Who's left? Well, he hasn't made a main yet, but welcome back to Supercross, Billy Ladinovich, who I believe didn't even ride a motorcycle for 10 years. He became an electrician. There was a dad that wanted him to coach his son, and Billy started going back to the track and riding. Supercross is gnarly at any age, but 40? He's made the night shows. I think he'll make a main before it's over.
Yeah, he's awfully close, and mud is not his forte. This is a kid that grew up in Southern California, and he won this race in 2005. I got to interview him just before the LCQ on Saturday night. You see the crash there in the LCQ. I don't think he felt like he had much chance of making it. He just knows, he's making a comeback effort here, but I don't think he was out there slogging around in the mud preparing for a race like San Francisco. But it's such a cool story, and I think it's something we need to track, because someone at his age getting back out there in the 250 West class, no less, if he can get in that main event, what a story that'll end up being.
This is another cool story from In the Pack. Colby Copp got to visit his local high school this weekend before his local race here, San Francisco. And that is a special place for him because he was actually the starting quarterback for his high school football team. Yes, while also racing Supercross. Wild.
Yeah, it was something I was trying to push for, just because it was kind of the Jackie Robinson of Supercross. You could do 2 things, and I was going to head to a college that was going to allow me to still race Supercross and play football. So I was pushing really hard to be able to do that, just to show, some kids growing up maybe watching me and seeing that you can be good at multiple different things, especially Supercross and football.
Yeah, I love this. It's not just Colby Copp, JT. This happens all the time. There are 5:30 a.m. privateers on the track Friday morning talking to the local television channels. But for Colby Copp, this is a very specific and very heartwarming story.
No, this is really cool. And after some of the quarterback performances I saw in Wild Card Weekend, maybe Colby Copp could get back in there and get into the NFL for this upcoming weekend. But all jokes aside, it's cool to see the crossover and to follow this story, for him to go back and expose motorcycle racing and supercross racing specifically to this group of kids, because we've all run into that. I had the same thing when I was younger. People just don't know. They haven't ever been exposed to it. But once they are, they love it. The excitement and the adrenaline and the risk taking that Monster Energy Supercross riders do is not something that you really see every day. So it's an infectious sport, and I love that we're branching out and attracting new viewers.
Yes, we try to compare it to football. Colby Copp can actually literally do that because he was doing both at the same time. Round 2 of Monster Energy AMA Supercross kicked off our annual Love Moto Stop Cancer charity event, which we run in conjunction with St. Jude. I want to give you the details here exactly. This is cool. You can get that t-shirt, pledge $19, text SUPER, that's SUPER, if you somehow don't know how to spell that. Here's the number, 785-833. $19, and you'll get the t-shirt. And you know what t-shirt I'm talking about because JT, every single person, including me and you, has been modeling these shirts.
Yeah, this is an incredible effort, and kudos to everybody behind this, both on the St. Jude side and also on Monster Energy Supercross side, to get behind this and really change lives. You know, it's so cliche to say you're really making change, but this is the people that it's helping truly benefit from this, and to say that you were a part of helping a child or helping someone to hopefully we're going to cure cancer one day from efforts like this, but at the very minimum, we're improving the lives of people that need it the most.
Let's go back to the racing. Look, the start is important in every race. It's significantly more important in a mud race. Chase Sexton had the greatest jump I've ever seen, then almost crashed in the first turn. Ken Roxon got the lead. He stalled. And by the way, there was also an insane first turn crash to the right of them.
Yeah, the start from Sexton, I still have more questions. Great job by Will Christian of asking him exactly what went on there. And he told us that he saw the gate flinch, so he just went. I don't know that I'm sold on that answer yet. I'm going to kind of prod there a little bit more. But yes, to the first turn crash, what happens is you get splashed with water from the leaders, right? It's like a wake from a boat. That water comes up, hits you in the face. You can't see anymore. So the riders that are running into the backs of they can't see anything. They go completely blind instantly. And then it's just, you hope that there's no one in front of you and you can kind of wade through the first turn while you're trying to clear your vision through tear-offs or roll-offs. So it's really a crapshoot in those scenarios. And all you can really do is try to be at the very front of the melee so you get sprayed with less water. But yeah, that stuff is very, very normal and typical. And thankfully, no one was really injured.
You could try to grab a tear off and clear your vision going into the first turn. Justin Barsha tried that in the LCQ, and going one-handed into mud in turn 1, not recommended either. So pick your poison there.
Yeah, pick your poison. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Look, Sexton got it done. It was amazing, that start. You've already talked about that. We say we didn't learn anything in the mud. I will say this. I did not know either way, good or bad. Is Sexton a good or bad mud rider? I didn't know. We have to give him some marks here. He's clearly good in mud.
See, I have kind of learned that he was good. If you go back and watch East Rutherford last year, I truly believe he would have gone on to win that main event had Justin Barsha not gotten in there and put that block pass on him where Sexton ended up stalling the motorcycle. So I've seen clues along the way. And then you give him a start like that, one of the best starts I've ever seen. This was not a shocking result. So he's got some momentum back. He has the red plate back that he had at A1 and going into San Diego with it. So he's, everything that he could want. The setup is there. Now we just got to kind of make good on it.
And I want to make it clear. He said, I didn't think we'd be here this early. And he doesn't mean winning in a mud race. He means he didn't think he'd be this comfortable on the bike this early. The last 2 weeks, they made major progress. So if you're a Chase Sexton fan, that means more than just winning in a mud race when you pull up unbelievable start.
He made a huge fundamental fork change. And I'm going to kind of ask them this weekend if we can share the exact details of what that was. I don't want to give things away that maybe they're trying to keep close to the vest. But it is a big, big, big change as far as fork and how the internals work there. That's what led to that comfort level. So watch for that in San Diego. If he looks like a new guy versus A1, maybe that's what it was. So we'll try to report back on the weekend as far as what that exactly was.
Yeah, if you're a Sexton fan, that's actually bigger than winning the mud race. If he's way better than he was at Anaheim 1 on a dry track, that means more than this. This is just good for points, especially because we move to our next topic. Okay, maybe we learned 2 things. Jet Lawrence, not good on a Supercross track in the mud. Heat and main were bad.
Yeah, and for Jet, there's going to be nights like these. It's so early in your career. It's not going to all go perfectly. And you look at how it started. He got a bad start in the main, and it's so difficult at that point to do things right because you can't hold on to the motorcycle with your hands because your gloves are soaking wet. You can't see anymore. He had goggle issues throughout the night, and you get splashed in the first corner, just like we talked about. You see how wet his pants are. That's a really underreported on aspect of this too, because your pants are so muddy and so wet, you have no traction anymore. So you really can't grip the motorcycle with your legs, and you're just on a slip and slide. You're along for the ride trying to hold on to this motorcycle versus Chase Sexton, Eli Tomac, and these guys that are relatively clean out front and have so much more control. So you want to say, yeah, you didn't ride very well, but there were so many things working against Jet after the first lap. You almost expect him to struggle the rest of the way.
We're going to San Diego this weekend, and hopefully we will no longer be talking about rain or mud, and we'll be talking about great racing and the 50th anniversary event for Supercross. We've had a couple retro races in the past, but 50th, this might be the biggest of all. It's going to be real fun to see what people roll out this weekend.
Yeah, let's hope it's dry. To have 50 years of racing and heritage celebrated, it deserves to have a great weekend of weather and get back to the exciting racing that we all want. But you see some of the highlights here. Jeremy McGrath, of course, just what a dominant figure he was. Jeff Emig, around the years, and Ricky Carmichael on our broadcast team. These guys made up what was 50 years of racing, and hopefully we get to celebrate it in fine fashion this coming Saturday.
Expect to see a lot of retro touches on gear and graphics and bikes, and of course everything that the Fell Motorsports folks are going to put in on the Supercross side, along with the teams and riders. Should be really fun. We'll have more information coming on that. And as far as the actual racing part, JT, take us through the San Diego track map.
Well, let's hope we get this exact layout and it's not a function of rain, but this is a much more traditional Supercross track, in my opinion. You see the long rhythm lanes, the setup for the whoops that extends down the stadium sideline. There are a few rhythm sections to keep an eye on here, but it's just more when I think of Supercross, this is the type of racetrack that I think of. And I think it lends to a little bit better racing. You don't have the unique baseball diamond type track where it kind of winds over itself so many times. I think that precludes passing, where this more football style stadium allows passing because you have longer lanes and it gives more opportunity for riders to pull up next to each other. So I think if we get good weather, we're going to see incredible racing in San Diego.
Now let's welcome in our staff statistician, the king of the calculator, Clinton Fowler. And we're going to talk every fan's favorite word, parity. We have parity in racing so far in 2024, Clinton.
We do. We've got the same guys, we've got different guys doing the fastest qualifiers. We've got different guys winning the heat races, the LCQs, and the mains. It's making for some great conversation and competition. JT, looking at fastest qualifiers. We've got Jet Lawrence and Levi Kitchen, who started at A1. Now we got Aaron Plessinger and RJ Hampshire. To me, Aaron Plessinger, Levi Kitchen, first time they've been fastest qualifier. That's got to be a boost of confidence. How important is it to start your day off with great qualifying?
It certainly helps. It's just a boost to your confidence. The mood between your qualifying session and that heat race is just a little better. There's a little bit of pep in everybody's step. But it's so funny, you contrast that, all of that completely goes away when the gate drops for the heat race. There's so much emphasis put on qualifying in the afternoon, and as soon as the heat races start, nobody really cares anymore. So I do think it's important just to kind of make sure you're going into the racing with a good attitude, but it's one of those things that matters until it doesn't.
Now let's go on to the heat races. Did anyone have on the bingo card the night of the Jorge Prado, Dylan Ferrandis sweep of the 450 heats? I don't know if people had that, let alone this early. And we've had different heat winners in every single heat this year.
Yeah, it's an impressive. I definitely didn't see the international crew there between Ferrandis and Prado. But guys, 8 8 different heat winners in 8 heats. Impressive. Maximus Voland and Ryder Di Francisco winning their first career heat wins. Again, that's got to be a great boost of confidence, especially for a guy like Ryder D, who's a rookie. I expect he'll build on that in San Diego this week. But JT, Jorge Prado winning a heat race, that feels like a big milestone, but is there an asterisk because it was done in the mud?
Well, the big winners there were the SuperMotocross Video Pass, because we had international winners in those heat races. But I don't think we can really read too much into it. I think the mud was the biggest factor there. So I'm just going to kind of slow everyone down on getting too carried away with what we saw in the mud with those guys. And we'll kind of reconvene to that point in San Diego.
And then the parity goes all the way through the last chance qualifiers.
It sure does, Weege. We've got 4 guys here: Justin Hill, TJ Albright. They were your winners at Anaheim 1. They didn't even make the night shows through qualifying at San Francisco for a multitude of different reasons, Justin being a little bit hurt. But the one that really sticks out for me here is Nate Thrasher. He's factory guy, 4th career LCQ. This is his first one since his rookie year. But he's supposed to be contending for the title, JT, and he's now started the season 21-18 after that LCQ.
Yeah, and there's a lot there. I truly believe that Nate Thrasher wasn't really ready and 100% prepared to come into this West Coast Championship. But some of the things that are going on with Hayden Deegan behind the scenes, I believe, drove this decision and put Nate Thrasher into the West Coast Championship. Doesn't mean he couldn't have succeeded, but I believe there was a little bit of a chess game being played, and Hayden Deegan, I believe, wasn't prepared to race this West Coast Championship. So they had to kind of force Nate Thrasher into action maybe before he necessarily wanted to be. And I could be wrong. That's my theory.
The main thing is we have different main event winners. Last year, Tomac swept the first 2. Jet Lawrence swept the first 2, 450, 250. Not the case this time.
Nope, definitely not the case this time. To me, when I look at these 4 winners, guys, Chase Sexton, the 6 KTM winner in the history of the Premier class, that's a great accomplishment this early into the season, this early into riding for that team. But the one for me that really stands out is Jordan Smith. He had gone the 3rd longest between 250 wins. He had gone 5 years, 10 months in 3 days. That's over 2,000 days, guys. There's only 2 guys that had gone longer. Talon Volan, he'd gone nearly 9 years, and Mike Brown had gone nearly 8 years. But we were talking earlier, that's for different circumstances. They had left and gone over and raced in other places.
Yeah, those 2 left and went to MXGP for years. Jordan Smith has been lining up at openers for the 5 seasons in between. And JT, some years he came in pretty hurt already or got hurt, but this is pretty remarkable that, as he said, JT's had 2 different careers, he feels like now.
Yeah, and if you think about where Jordan Smith was in 2017, he was contending for a title. He had such a bright future. I think everybody had him penciled in to be a championship contender for the next couple of years before he made that eventual jump to the 450 class. That's where we all thought this was going. And lo and behold, that's not how it panned out at all. He couldn't stay healthy. He couldn't stay upright. And now, all the way till 2024, he's back there again. And I've tried to keep reminding him, hey, it's been a really long time since you were this guy again. And yeah, I think for him too, he's been waiting and working behind the scenes to get this form. So we'll see what he does with it. But right back, I just go back to that Las Vegas finale in 2017 where everything was set up for him to be champion and he crashed. It's been a long time since he was in that position, and here we are again.
There's your parity for you. So Clinton, thanks for the data, and I'm sure it's going to get crazy again at round 3.
Yeah, looking forward to San Diego, gentlemen.
Here's how to watch round 3 of the Supermotocross World Championship from San Diego. You can watch everything live on Peacock or outside the United States on the Supermotocross Video Pass. It starts with Race Day Live. That'll be at 3 o'clock Eastern, and racing begins at 8:30 Eastern on Saturday night. Don't forget, we also have a Spanish broadcast. That has been really fun to develop that new program on the SMX Video Pass. And I wasn't in San Francisco. I listened to the race on Sirius XM radio when I had to run out and fetch dinner after the heat races. That's channel 85 NBC Sports. So you can listen to the race. There's really no excuse. One way or another, you should be watching or listening. And we will be celebrating again the 50th anniversary of the Supercross Championship. Here's what the riders think about that.
Yeah, 50 years is a long time, half a century. It's definitely cool. Like when they bring that kind of stuff up, it adds the importance to the races, I feel, and I think people take note of that, and it kind of gives you a chance to throw back on all the history that has happened thus far, and it makes it that much more special.
Yeah, for me to be a part of the 50 years of Supercross is just amazing. Obviously for me, first and foremost, I was a fan. And being able to be on the same floor and doing the things that some of those guys were able to do is pretty mind-blowing. And sometimes, you know, I have to pinch myself, and sometimes I definitely take it for granted, you know.
Awesome. Glad to be a part of the 50 years. Their bikes were way below what we race these days, but the tracks were still intense, so they had a unique style there. So the history of the sport is unbelievable, and now to be 50 years and be around for that, I hope, you know, one day kids will be like, oh, I watched Porsche, and, you know, banging bars and racing with those guys was sick. So yeah, it's really, really special.
It's awesome. 50 years it's a long time, but it also has flown by. Lots of greats come through here, from McGrath to Carmichael to Stewart, and now to be a part of that group and be racing, you know, with the greats is something I'll remember forever.
I've been a fan since then. I was a little kid, but just to see it growing up and just dreaming of being here one day and then getting to be here and getting to live my dream, you know, for what, almost 20 years now doing it.
It's awesome. I think this sport has given me everything that I have in my life. So it's been a ride, that's for sure.
All right, JT, for years I've had this thing. I call it round 3 theory. We don't see everyone's best at Anaheim 1. They sort through bikes. They get better by round 3, but we also don't have a pecking order yet. Everyone still believes. So I feel like round 3 is often the most combustible mix of riders who are ready and also believe they can win. Do you agree?
Yes, but I don't think the second round helped facilitate that. So I think maybe it'll get pushed a little bit further as riders sort things out. So let's just hope for dry weather. I don't know what the opposite of a rain dance is, but that's what I'm going to be doing, as well as still trying to thaw out and dry out from San Francisco. But regardless, with the 50th anniversary, such a great new venue at Snapdragon Stadium, it's going to be a great weekend. I just know it.
All right, tune us in on Peacock and the Super Motocross Video Pass. Thanks for watching SMX Insider.